Welcome guys, I'm back in town from SeatStory Cup, and this will be the first of at least 3 videos that I planned to recap all the things that happened. The first video will be about the deck lists and tactics that I came up with for the tournament and for the qualifiers. I figured that this might be the most interesting thing for you. Be warned, there will be spoilers of the event within this video, so I'll give you a few seconds to turn it off and see the videos first if you don't want to be spoiled. I'll upload the videos within the next days. I also got the permission to upload my videos of my own games on YouTube from the event itself, so there will be a lot of videos. Okay, let's start with the decks that I brought and the tactics. Let's start with the most important one, which is this one. It is the standard Kibla list, which carried me through the whole qualifiers. I made one adjustment. I replaced Cairn with the Black Knight for this event because I wanted to make the handlock matchup at least winnable somehow. And the Black Knight is still a good card because like almost every deck runs Belchers or like Druid of the Claw and something like that. So it usually finds a target, but it's more react. So it isn't a dead card. It's only a dead card in the Miracle matchup. So it's besides the 2 Cabal Shadow Priest, it's still it's another 6 mana Yeti, but well, usually the 6 drops are too slow for Miracle anyways, so it wasn't that big of a deal. So usually the Black Knight finds a target, even in Hunter, and I just wanted to have something to give me a little chance to win against handlocks. In fact, and now there will be the first spoiler, in the Open Swiss round I had to play against Frozen Eyes, who brought a handlock. I'm not sure if he got the tip from other players that I was playing Priest, but I figured to win this in a very close boss fight, otherwise I would have been eliminated for the second phase of the qualifier. So the Black Knight did well. So based on this Priest, this was the list that I felt most comfortable with. I brought it to the Open Swiss rounds where we played an 8-round Swiss, best of 1. It did some very nice job actually. I played against a lot of Zeus and Hunters, I believe 1 Warrior and 1 Handlock too. And I figured to win 7 out of my 8 matches with this list. I lost my second one against the Zoo because I had a very clunky hand. So this was basically the deck that I wanted to bring to the tournament, definitely, because I felt most comfortable with it. It felt like the stars aligned with this deck, so I felt it, kinda. I usually have the problem with some of the decks which were great for other players that I can't feel it, that I'm not feeling comfortable with it because I feel like the deck doesn't give me the draws that I need. For example, I tried to bring a Paladin list to this tournament, but when I practiced with it, I felt like being betrayed by the deck all the time. I never drew Equality when I needed it, I never drew a Pyromancer or in a Consecration when I had at least the Equality in my hand, and something like that. It felt not too consistent, at least for me, so I didn't consider it to bring it in the end. But I crafted Tyrion and wasted a lot of dust, but never mind. So this was the deck that I definitely wanted to bring to this tournament. And with this in the back of my head, I knew that I would want to ban Warlock because well, the handlock matchup is almost unwinnable, even with Black Knight. And this way I had the chance to replace the Black Knight with Cairn, which is a better card all around. and in almost every other matchup better. So this was the initial plan: ban Warlock if it's Warlock, if there is a Warlock, and replace this with Cairn and sweep people with Priest, basically. Okay. What other decks did I bring then? I brought one Zoo. I think it's pretty similar to the Firebed deck lists. I haven't figured it, but I didn't compare them. Second deck that I wanted to bring because, well, as you can see, while practicing I hit the 500 wins with Warlock. Warlock is a class that I played a lot in the past, and well, Zoo is also, although people say it's skill-less, or you don't need any skill for that, it's not true, but I felt kinda comfortable playing it and didn't have this much preparation. It didn't took that much preparation time to learn it, actually. Is there anything special about here? Well, maybe the low tap. For some matchups, it's pretty nice, and well, it can protect your board from an early swipe or other board clears or a brawl or something. So these two decks are what I wanted to bring, and I practiced a lot with other decks, and in the end the other three classes were Shaman, Druid, and Hunter. Definitely wanted to bring the Hunter, although I figured it would be banned like a lot, but that gave me space to like play the Warlock later, which are like the two classes that getting banned most of the time. Oh, I didn't explain the format, but I hope after this event you guys will still be familiar with it. So we had 5 decks to bring, could ban one of the opponent's decks, and forced them to play one deck first. So we didn't choose our own decks blindly, but the opponent's decks blindly, which is a very unique format, but I liked it a lot. So the whole strategy thing, yeah, was kind of interesting. But this is what took the most time actually preparing. So it's not people watching tournaments sometimes post on Reddit like, well, where's the skill? You just need the cards or you lose, and sometimes it's right. But the preparation and getting your matchups done and bringing a good lineup is very crucial. And it's not just copying some deck lists that perform well, and it's even also not like copying a lineup that did well, because you need to prepare for the specific tournament. You have to know the meta, like what to expect from people to bring, and well, you have to get your lineup right there. So if are there bans, how many bans, how many classes, what are the good lineups that you can expect, what are the bad lineups. So let's hurry a little bit. This is the Shaman that I brought, pretty standard list, I'd say. When I practiced with this, I felt like I needed the eggs. Basically because sometimes I struggled a lot with having good cards in my hand, but if you play against like Hunter or Zoo, usually your board just gets cleared like all the time. Also against other classes, of course. So the egg was a little improvement there because nobody touches the egg. So you have something on the board and can play like Totem Rockbiter or something and trade this in, clear something from the opponent's board, and have a 4/4 Nerubian. So I figured that this was something that I definitely needed for this deck. And I also wanted Sylvanas in this deck because if you fall behind with it on the board and play Sylvanas, sometimes you get a 2/1 or even a 3/1. Oh, there's opening a lot. Yeah, something like this. So Sylvanas is just an annoying card, messes with the math of your opponent's trades, and it's just hard to deal with. gives your opponent headaches, and yeah, that's why I included it in this list, and that performed well when I practiced. The rest of the list should be pretty standard. Harvest Golems over Unbound Elementals, because I didn't plan to ban Hunter, so I wanted to have something on the board that stays on the board even if it dies, or even if it gets traded with like a Hover or something. Then you still have the 2/1 which can trade with a Mad Scientist, or at least pulls a Web Spinner, something like that. So overall, yeah, that was the plan. And then the standard fast read list with Dumble Combo and Scenarios. Since I didn't want to ban Hunter, and Hunter is actually a tough matchup for this deck, I included the Sunfear Protectors over the Haunted Creepers, which are better in like the Priest and Warrior matchups, and you can play it on turn 2. So if you the Sunfear just dies to a Weapon Swing, like a Fiery War Axe from Warrior. The Haunted Creeper is more resilient against this, but if you can taunt up like a Spectral Knight, it's good against Miracle and against Hunter. So I figured that this would be a change to make with this lineup. And in the end, Hunter list a little bit slower than some other Hunter lists, especially the Knife Juggler Snake Trap version stuff. Since I didn't need to counter Handlock with it, I had no Hunter's Marks in it, and well, I experimented a lot with Snake Trap 1 and 2, but they didn't perform usually. You can easily play around it. It was good like 1 or 2 months ago, where people didn't expect snake traps, but now usually the weakest minion goes phase to test for a freezing trap, and if it doesn't proc, it's clear that it's snake trap, and then people play around it by not attacking. Sludge Belcher is good against this because they have to attack it, but well, usually they wait for like a Whirlwind, a Death Spite, Unstable Ghoul to proc, Holy Nova, Swipe, and such, and I figured the snakes didn't perform too well. I played this list once against Mirari and against this Miracle Rogue, and got like, well, I didn't get too many good draws, let's put it that way. Okay, so that's were the 5 decks that I brought to the tournament. Since the plan was to ban Warlock, I was pretty confident about the overall matchups. All of these decks, I figured, had at least a 50-50 matchup against Warrior. So in the Druid, the Shaman, the Zoo, and I've held my Priest were actually favored. I wasn't sure about the Hunter matchup because it was well, the slow Hunter list usually does better, but Hunter can struggle against Warrior, but all the other decks had, at least in my opinion, a favorable matchup against Warrior. So I figured I wanted to start against Warrior, just to get the first win done, and if you are in the lead, then it's counter pick after counter pick, or I figured that the decks in general were strong, so they were able to sweep my opponents. I left myself open to Freeze Mage, which I didn't consider during the preparation, to be honest. I didn't follow the VIA Game Cup too much, but it seemed like there were that Freeze Mage became popular after this. And well, I left myself open to this. The Undertaker Priest usually has a terrible matchup because you don't have cards like Holy Fire to heal yourself back up again, or Silence to get rid of an Undertaker, or unfreeze a minion of yours. So Yeah, the Zoo can be good against Freeze Mage, but usually struggles as well. Shaman matchup is also not great, so my only outs for Freeze Mage were Druid, which is slightly favored, and Hunter, which I assumed would get banned if I play against Freeze Mage. So this is something that came to my mind after, actually, after I put in my deck list. So this was like my only big weakness. All the other decks that could have been brought to the tournament, I felt like confident with this. The only weak matchup that was left for my priest after banning warlocks would have been Miracle Rogue, I figured. So, but I was okay with that. I usually, well, the matchup was like 70-30, I'd say, in the rogue's favor. Which isn't great, but I had outs for Miracle, like Hunter, Druid, and depending on the list, also Shaman. And Zoo is also depending on the list, since there is a lot of versatility in Miracle Rogue's builds. It's usually like, I consider it to be a 50-50. So I felt quite good about my lineup, and actually, and now we're coming to heavy spoilers. I got the matchups that I wanted. I played like, well, I didn't mention this, but the priest deck had a record of 7-1 in the Swiss qualifiers, day 1. And after that, it had like 4-0 in the first games, because I always started with priest, and I got always counterpicked, except for Toida, who countered me with druid. But in all the other games, I got counterpicked by handlock and lost every game with this. But it was okay because I was in the lead and could counterpick afterwards, because we played best of 3 and best of 5 in the grand finals. So if we exclude the counter picks, the priest deck carried me with 7-1 and 4-0, so had a record of like 11-1, which was amazing, and that's why I wanted to bring it. Another deck that I had in my lineup for the qualifiers was, you might know it already, the Aggro Warlock, which did very well, because I figured that like almost everyone would counter me with handlock after I won with priest, and did very well to counter the counter pick, and I won like every handlock game with it by turn 5 or 6. So did very well with this, and I also won against Toida's Druid with it, because the list usually doesn't run too many taunts, and I figured I would be faster killing him than he was killing me, and it turned out quite well. So speaking about, let's put it in the chronology. The first day of the qualifiers was, as I mentioned, the Open Swiss round with 8 rounds of best of 1 Swiss. Like I said, the priest did very well. I played all the games with priest and played 7-1, lost against 1 Zoo, which with a very clunky hand. I think the game was over by turn 6 already. But I didn't want to bring the control priest because it, well, usually has the same problems. If you don't draw into your Pyromancer or Organized Circle early, it's very hard to come back against Zoo, and I figured that Undertaker Priest is a lot better, because if you are able to develop a board early, and then get a good trade with like Shadow Madness or something like Holy Nova, you're usually fine. Turned out to be true for most of the games. So that was very nice. I qualified for the second day of the qualifier, which was a 4-round best of 3 single elimination round with 4 seeded players and 4 of the players who qualified through the quiz round, Swiss round, a quiz round. And the first game was against Fake. These were my hardest games in the whole qualifiers. I think our first 2 games, which was like, the first one was a priest mirror. It took like forever. I think it was almost half an hour or something. At one point I thought the game was lost because I thought I would have seen his mana flashing. So like he was as if he was playing a spell or card that was too expensive for the mana that he had, and he had 9 mana. So I figured he would have a mind control. But my only out was to slam the Ysera nevertheless. So at this point I thought I would have lost. But instead he played his own Ysera, killed mine after that, and I top decked my own mind control, and he didn't have his mind control. So I had his Ysera, which was golden, so it looked even better. And I won from there pretty closely. The second game was, he counterpicked me with Handlock, of course. Was a close game nevertheless. I can't quite remember it, but it took like at least 20 minutes. It was pretty tough, and I think he just won with Jaraxxus in the end. Can't quite remember. And after that, I, well, finished him in like 5 minutes with the Aggro Warlock. The games after that were a little bit more, yeah, not that tough then. I had the second game against Teude, also a German guy, so we had a few of German duels. I won the first game with Priest against, I think he brought Hunter, and he counterpicked me with Druid, and I finished him with Aggro Warlock again. I thought about playing Shaman, but I didn't feel quite comfortable with a Shaman at this point, and the third class that I brought was the old Haunted token list, so with oozes and stuff, and I felt like this mirror wouldn't have been in my advantage, especially if he drew his Wild Growth early, and I was like, yeah, here's my ooze, and here's my Eddie. So I thought that because there are so less taunts in the deck, that Face Lock would actually be a good alternative. Because usually it struggles with a Zoo, so it should struggle with an aggressive Zoo even more, and was right. So my third game was... who was my third game against? Can't quite remember. Have to look it up. Sorry. But it was almost the same, I believe. Oh yeah, it was against Cookie, and he also brought Hunter, and got destroyed by my Priest. Then he took Handlock, and I took my Burst Lock and bursted him down. The fourth game was against Frike, a guy from Sweden. This was the finals, and I was pretty motivated because at this point I knew that I would go to Krefeld. I knew that I would go to the SeatStory Cup main event, but since I don't have a lot of money, I wanted to get the win because the winner got his traveling paid, and this was a huge deal actually for me. So I definitely wanted to win this, and I don't know what did he start with? I have to look it up. He started with Druid actually, which worked well for Teude but not for Frike. I won this game. He counterpicked me with Handlock, and all of a sudden, when I wanted to counter him with the Burst Lock, Edmund said that the finals, although the brackets stated it otherwise, was best of 5. So I was thinking, and then I was like, okay, the Burst Lock is a almost 90% win against the Handlock, so even if he counterpicks me from there, he needs to win the game after that, and the game after that. So I could counterpick him otherwise. So I figured that I wanted to go with the Burst Lock, and it went very well. I won against his handlock, and he counterpicked me with Hunter, and I won against his Hunter too. So at this point it was clear that I was going to the main event and get my travel paid, which was a huge deal. And after that my preparation started with these 5 decks. As a result, I think I mentioned this, I talked to Fake after I won and asked him to if I could practice for the event with Under the Radar, which is his training group. And we talked a little bit, and they were okay with it and said, yeah, my results were pretty solid and stuff like that. But it turned out that there are almost exclusively NA people, and that the main time that they practice is when I when I am asleep. It was a little bit odd that I didn't say it before, but we figured that during the first week, where like all the interaction was in the middle of the night, and the few EU people that they have seem to be night owls, so there wasn't much room to practice. And after that, it was like, okay, so and I left the group afterwards, and as far as I know, 6-0 practiced with Under the Radar afterwards, so there wasn't even a possibility to do some training games, because maybe I would have encountered 6-0, and you shouldn't knew my decks then this well, right? So I did all the practice on my own, and now we come to the main event. Like I said, I came up with these 5 decks, which I felt quite comfortable with it. And in the main event, I encountered Mirari as let's put it otherwise. As you may or may not know, I'll just look it up. I was in Group D, which yeah, which is although it didn't look like it, was the group of death. Because in this group there was Mirari and Toide, or there were Mirari and Toide, who made place 2 and place 4 of the whole event. So my group was the only group that included 2 of the top 4 guys. The other group was Group A with Savitz, who was, well, like one guy, and Group H with 6-0, who was also in the top 4, I believe. Was he? I think so. Yeah. Okay. So my group was the only one that had 2 guys of the top 4 in his group. So it was hard to advance because only the first 2 of the group advanced. And I played the first game against Mirari, and I got the matchup that I wanted, Priest versus Warrior, so I felt comfortable with it. I won against this Warrior, so this proved my strategy like almost right. He counterpicked Miracle Rogue after that, and I was able to put a lot of pressure on him, but I couldn't quite finish him. And after that he stabilized very well, and the sprint in his deck, so the Miracle deck was quite interesting. He had a sprint in there, and the sprint killed me very hard in every game that we played after that, because the second game was, I believe, I picked Druid for the Miracle matchup, which should have been favored, but I didn't get good draws, and he had like the sprint again and nice top decks. So I was behind 1-2 then, and at this time we were like super tired already. So the whole group D, I talked to all of the other guys. They were actually quite nice, all of them. We were tired when we arrived there at the place, and it was like 2 p.m. and we knew that we would play at least until like 2 a.m. And when we started was, I think, like 10 p.m. and we were so tired. So I forgot about his ban, because he banned my Warlock, not my Hunter, and I forgot about that, and started with Warlock, and he showed his his paper and was like, "Hey, I bent your warlock," and I was like, "Oh yeah, okay, let's start over." And so the third game, miracle game, was with Hunter, which also should be favored against his Miracle Rogue, although I ran a little bit slower list. But, well, he got the sprint again, and he got his set top decks again, and I lost my first match, which was kind of disappointing, but Mirari was a very nice player. In fact, after the first game, we stopped for a moment, and he said, like, "Oh, I could hear the casters a little bit, I need your in-ear headphones." Which was very nice. We talked while the admins looked for other headphones that they could bring and organized it. We talked a little bit about that, and he was like, "Yeah, I heard them saying something about Sylvanas and stuff," and I wasn't quite sure how to react during the game, but now I wanted to say something, which was quite fair. And since I won the first game, there was nothing to debate about. So. I like this. Mirari was a very good sport, and well, he ended up being top 2, just losing the grand finals against Savitz. So yeah, was quite a good player that was unknown until then, I believe. So my second game match was against Toide again, and we played the losers match because he lost some very strange games against Tricky, which I casted with Nimsh. Was pretty fun. But after that, we played our match, and the loser faced elimination, so it was quite hard. And at this point, we talked a lot already during the whole day, and in fact, he offered me a place to sleep because my hostel didn't respond all of the sudden. I wanted to sleep actually in. Well, that's for another video, the personal stuff. So let's just. But Todd is a really nice guy, and yeah, so was an interesting series at least. Again, I got the matchup that I wanted, like Priest versus Warrior, which was okay. But two things happened. Like, I got none of my good draws in the first like 5 turns. I almost did nothing, and the one thing that I did. Got was injured Blade Master, but he had an execute, and so I almost spent 5 turns with slamming down an Oshai Cleric and playing the injured Blade Master, which got executed, and after that he had a Death Spite out with 1 charge left after he killed my Cleric, so I could have slammed down my Arcanine Soul Priest or my Slush Belcher, but they would have died to the weapon easily, so, well, the whole early game was fucked up from the beginning. And, yeah, he also ran some tech cards like Gorehowl and Baron Geddon. So I was somewhat close in the end, but I didn't have ways to come back from that. There was one point where I could have stealed his Ysera against, with mine Ysera on the board, so I would have had 2 Yseras, but it wasn't possible because he had so much damage on the board that I just would have died to like 1 or 2 more damage from his hand. So I couldn't do this and had to clear with Arcanine double circle and sacrifice my Ysera into his Ysera, and from there on the game was pretty much over. Which was a shame actually. So I picked the Druid as my second most comfortable list, and I figured Druid was able to sweep in this tournament, get a 3-0, and yeah, but I didn't play this well. I was like, this was probably my worst game at this tournament. I felt, yeah, I was pretty tired at the moment and was quite under stress because I faced elimination, and I think I did 2 mistakes in the whole game. Like, I got a pretty good hand and a pretty good curve to start with, but I played my Druid of the Claw in charge that I innervated out which was to kill his armorsmith, which was kind of unnecessary because I didn't play around his weapon like Fiery War Axe. He could just hit it after that and was okay with that. I think it was because, like, usually if you play against warrior, you don't want to play your Druid of the Claw in taunt because it gets too much Black Knight value then. But it was like turn 3, so there wouldn't have been a Black Knight for a long time, so it was kind of dumb doing this. And the second mistake where it got stuck was, like, I think my 6 mana turn, where he had a Sludge Belcher and I had a damaged Druid of the Claw, and he had an Acolyte and I had Keeper and Wrath and such. I should have just cycled the Wrath, killed off the Sludge Belcher and silenced his Acolyte to deny him the card draw, but I killed the Acolyte with the Wrath and used my Savage Rod to clear his whole board. I can't recall this. I was just stuck for the whole turn in my head and I couldn't think because I was like super tired and super stressed out, and I think I had some things like I should keep the Keeper because of Sylvanas or something, but there wasn't even something to steal on my board, so this was like a huge misplay there. But in the end, his hand was great and mine was not, so I think I wouldn't have won the game even by playing it perfectly, but I can't remember. The third game, after losing against his warrior twice, which my lineup was favored against with like every deck, I wanted to play the warlock because he banned the hunter, and I wanted to get well, I had to 3-0 with a deck, and if there is a deck that can 3-0 after my druid and my priest got eliminated, was Zoo, right? So I played this matchup, and it went quite well until the end, but within the first 18 or 19 cards of my deck, I didn't draw a Doomguard or a Soulfire. So these 4 cards were at the bottom of my deck, and I had a situation in the end where I was 1 damage off from lethal, but the important card that I drew at this moment was Haunted Creeper, and I had like I think 8 of my 10 last cards would have rescued me, or at least 6. Like there was at least 1 Abusive Sergeant, a Dark Iron Dwarf, a Power Overwhelming, Doomguard, double Soulfire. Yeah, there's at least 6 cards that would have rescued me, but I drew into the Haunted Creeper, so I couldn't quite finish him. Whereas Toyde got within his first half of the deck, I think within the first dozen of cards even, and 2 shield blocks, which rescued him a lot, alongside with Grommash and Death Spite to activate it, and another weapon to kill the Death Spite to activate it. So it was like super messed up at this moment. And like I said, I was 1 damage off, and Nimsh was like, there would have been a situation where he couldn't activate his Grommash because of my Leper Gnome on the field, but to be honest, this was wrong, because he could have just run, he had like... So the theory was, I put him down to 1, and then there's my Leper Gnome, so he can't play the Grommash and play the Fiery War Axe to activate his Grommash with the leftover Death Spite. But this was wrong, because he could have just ran his Armorsmith into one of my creatures, so the Armorsmith doesn't die. I believe I had a Harvest Golem out, and then he would have had 1 life and 1 armor. Then the Death Spite dies, giving him at least 2 armor from damaging the Armorsmith and damaging the Grommash, and this would have been, well, against the... So he had 1 life, 3 armor, and then the Leper Gnome dies. Well, it's pretty easy, in fact, but Nimsh said it on stream otherwise, so I wanted to clarify this. So I lost the game basically because of the draws and this kind, and because he got both shield blocks and his Grommash and an activated for Grommash, and then the first half of his deck, whereas I haven't seen any Doomguards or Soulfires at this moment. And I have seen the Doomguard within the last turn, but well, I was 1 damage off then. So I was eliminated at this point and was kind of sad, but at least I lost against 2 very nice guys who I had a lot of fun with this weekend nevertheless. And I talked to both Mirari and Toida, as well as to guys like Gara or Nimsh or well, other pros that casted my games. And I tried to reconsider if there were any major mistakes that I made, like with my lineup or with my strategy or within the games. But to be honest, it wasn't the case. With the exception of my 1 Druid game against Toida, Gara said I couldn't have done anything against the good draws and top decks from Mirari with the Rogue, which were amazing. Like, I think in my Hunter game I played both Web Spinners because I wanted to Houndmaster 1 the next turn, and at this moment he top decked his Fan of Knives, and when I played big threats in both of the games he just top decked the Sap for them. So, well, at this point it was quite hard. So Gara said I didn't have a chance, and if Gara says that, I believe him. And I reconsidered my place with Toida, and he said, like, yeah, he was lucky in the zoo game, and I didn't stand a chance because of the cards in the other games. So even though I lost very hard in the games, I'm not that unsatisfied. Okay, after revisiting all of this stuff that you might have already seen on stream, what did I learn from the whole thing? I learned the most important thing that I learned is that preparation is crucial in these kind of tournaments. Usually if I play online tournaments, it's like play the deck that you're most comfortable with if it doesn't have a lot of counter decks that are very present in the current tournament meta, and bring decks that counter the counter decks. So it went very well, but for the whole qualifier, for example, I just played Undertaker Priest and Aggro Warlock. But now I had to bring like 5 decks that I could play on a high competitive level, and that actually had a purpose in terms of lineup. So, and I got the format like 1 week before we started, and I had to bring the decks within the next 4 or 5 days. So it was hard, was a hard time of practicing on ladder and stuff. But well, it turned out to be a solid strategy. But well, the stars didn't align for me, and I assume that you people didn't cross your fingers and didn't root for me hard enough. No. What did I learn? Yeah, you should have a purpose within the lineup. You should know your matchups, and you should know your strategy. Yeah, that's basically the most important thing about that. And you should adjust your decks to meet this strategy and to complete your lineup in a good way. All of the guys were very nice, but I'll talk about this in another video. This one is long enough already. So I hope this gave you some insights into the tournament strategy and can help you out. And if you have any questions or comments, let me know, and I'll see you around next time. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.